Hey everybody, and welcome back to another fun and exciting intermediate math class. And today's lesson will be in 9.2 in your books. That is on page 352. And what we'll be talking about in today's lesson is translations. Now, we're not talking about from English to Spanish right here, okay? So no need to worry, we're in math class, right? So what we want to do here is we want to translate on the Cartesian plane, okay? So what does that mean? Go ahead and look down here. Translation is moving or sliding a geometric figure or point on the Cartesian plane. So basically we're going to get a point and then we're going to move that point somewhere. Okay? It's that simple. It's really not complicated. There's a lot of vocabulary here and it may be words that you've never heard before, but when it comes down to it, we're just moving points. Okay? So they tell us where to move it and we move it. Okay, so let's get some of this vocabulary out of the way and let's do some of these. All right, the original points of the shape that they give you are called the pre-image and are labeled with capital letters. Let's go ahead and let's change the color on this pre-image so you can see it just a little bit better. All right, so this pre-image right here that I've kind of changed the color of, that's the vocabulary word that you need to know. So the original points are called the pre-image. So when they give you a problem, whatever they give you, that is the preimage. Now, the other thing that's important here is that we label them with capital letters. So we're going to use A, B, C, D, whatever it is, capital letters, just the letter, okay? And that will tell us which point is which. And you know, the idea, I guess, is kind of like if we have a box on the graph, we're going to have A, B, C, and D, for example. That's just going to be our capital letters, and that's going to tell us. So this would be the pre-image. Okay. Now, the next one, the translated points of the shape. Okay, so when we move the shape, are called the image. Let me highlight that. So the image is labeled with the capital letters. Now, notice the difference, with a prime symbol. What is a prime symbol? It's this little tick mark next to the capital letter A. So like if this is our original, and let's say that our new shape, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move it. So we're going to move our shape down here. Now, it's the same shape. It's still a box, but we've moved it. So here's what we need to do when we move it. This is now the image, right? So this is the pre-image right here, and this is the image right down here. What we do with this image is we label it like this with A prime. So this is now not going to be capital letter A, it's going to be capital letter A prime. And this is not going to be B, this is going to be B prime, C prime, and D prime. Now it's the same thing, they're the same points, we've just moved them to a different location. So we need to kind of notate that we move them. And by doing that, we're going to say A prime. So when you see a prime, that's the secondary shape. That's the image. The pre-image is the first shape that you were given. The image is the second shape that you moved. And we designate that with prime. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you. Let's go ahead and move on. And I think when we come back to that here in a little bit, it'll make more sense. All right, so next, there are two types of translations. There's what's called a rigid transformation or a rigid translation and a non-rigid transformation. Now, here's what that looks like. The rigid transformations, check this out, the size and shape of the original polygon does not change, it simply moves. So let's go back to this. Now, I didn't draw these perfectly, but basically what I'm saying is that all we did here, and I can kind of highlight this and I'll do it, is we took this and we just moved it. Actually, that wasn't too bad. So the shape is pretty close to the same size. All we did was moved it. We moved it from one place to the other place. Okay? And that's what's called a rigid transformation. In this textbook, in this class, we will only be dealing with rigid transformations. But I do want you to kind of be familiar or just kind of understand what this is, the non-rigid. Okay, so we'll only be using these in this class. We won't be using non-rigid, but I want you to understand it. Non-rigid actually takes the size and shape of the original polygon and it alters it. It changes it in some way. It pushes it together. It stretches it up. It does something different to it. So non-rigid is actually changing the shape. We'll get to those in later classes, but not in this class. So we'll be talking about rigid, the types that don't change it, they just move it. All right, so let's try one of these. Let's actually see what this looks like on the graph. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up my graph paper. All right, so if we look down here, they have given us here our pre-image, okay? We just have to put the pre-image on the graph. So the first thing you need to do is you need to graph the points that they give you. They gave you a pre-image. This down here, and you can see this in your book on page 353. So what they do down here is they give us, that's the translation, that's the movement, okay? So what it's translating, what it's moving is based on that. We'll get to that in a second. But let's first of all put our points, put our pre-image on the Cartesian plane. So our first point is going to be 0, 0. So that's an easy one. That's right here at origin. And then B is negative 1, 1. So we're going to go negative 1 and then positive 1. Okay? So let's review this. Make sure you remember this is positive. This is positive. So if we're going up or right, those are both positive. Left is negative and down is negative. Okay? So we're going, remember, this is our X. Okay? And this is our Y. So I think when we kind of wrap our minds around those things, then it will help us when we're plotting these points. So 0, 0 is simple, right? It's right in the middle. It's always in the middle. It doesn't change. So B is negative 1, 1. So if we go negative 1, okay, 1 to the left, because it's negative, on our X, remember it's always in the format X, Y. So our first point is going on the X, so that's negative 1. Our next point is going up on the Y, so that is going to be right here. Okay, so there's our second point. And I'm going to blow this up in a second and I'll label it. But for now, let's just kind of put these points on. And then C is going to be 1, 2. So what's 1? 1 over, because that's positive on the X. And then we are going to go 2 up. 1, 2. And so there is our next point right there. And then we need to do the next point, which is 3, 2. D down here, 3, 2. So we're going to go over 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go up 2, 1, 2. And so there is our fourth point for our polygon. Okay. Now, this might look like nothing to you right now, but let's go ahead and zoom this in, and let's put our line on here. Okay. So I'll go ahead and connect the dots for us. So we're going to go from here to here to here to here. And now we have a polygon. So this shape that it created, this polygon, is called our pre-image. Let me go ahead and label this up. So this first one was A. I'll put A right there, and then we did B, and then we did C, and then we did D. Okay? So there's my shape, and now what I want to do is I want to come down here and I want to look at, okay, what is the transformation that they're making? What's going on? How is this shape moving? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at this, and then we'll go back and graph our image. So the first one is going to be our A prime. So what we do is we take our A, and then we apply this to it. So every single point is going to be moved by the same amount. So our A point, so is we're going to call it A prime, is going to look like 0 plus 2, because we take our X, which is 0, and we plug it in for X. So our first point here is 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. Then we take our Y point, which is also 0, and we plug it in here. 0 minus 3. So 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Then we'll do the same thing with our B points, and then we need to do our B prime. Okay, so our b prime is going to look like -1 inserted here into this. So -1 plus 2 is going to be +1. And then we're going to insert our y point, which is 1. So y goes here. So that's 1 plus -3 is going to be -2. And then we have to do our c prime. And our c prime would be 1 going in there. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then our y is 2, so 2 minus 3 is -1. And then our d prime, I'll put here, and we'll do our d prime is 3, so 3 plus 2 is 5. And then 2 in there is going to be 2 minus 3, and that will be 1. Okay, so there's our points. There's our prime shape points. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and graph our prime shapes on here. So let's blow this up as much as we can, and hopefully we can get all these points on here. I think maybe the shape is going to kind of go over top of our letters here, but we'll see how this works. Okay, so let's do these in this purple color. So we're going to do A prime, and it's going to be 2, -3. So we're going to go, this is origin, this is 0, 0. So we're going to go 1, 2, -3. 1, 2, 3, right there. All right, so there's our first point. This is going to be our A prime. We'll label that. And then we have our B point. So our B prime point is 1, and then -2. 1, 2. So there we go with that one. And this will be our B prime. Okay. And notice how it's kind of lining up here, right? This is going to look the same. All we're doing is shifting this or moving it. And then our C prime point is going to be 3, -1. 1, 2, 3, and then -1 right there. So there is C prime. And then we need D prime, which is here. So we have 5, and that should actually be a -1. All right, so right there we had our D point was 2. 2 minus 3 is -1. So I missed that negative spot in there. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then -1 right there. All right, so there is our secondary shape, and we call that the image. So let me go ahead and connect this image here, and we'll just do the same thing we did. So A to B, B to C, C to D, and then D back to A. And let me label this D prime right here. So there it is. Basically, it's the same exact shape. We've just moved the shape a little bit down and a little bit over on the graph. And again, on the computer, it's a little bit hard for me to draw it to make it look perfect. It might look a little off to you. The shapes are a little different. They're not meant to be different. You can look in your book and you can see where they're meant to be the same. But just, with using this program, sometimes it can be a little bit challenging. So there it is. There's kind of the way that it's done. All you do is take your original points, okay? So these points that are the originals, and then you're going to plug them into this little translation formula down there. So whatever it does to the x, you do that to the a prime. Whatever it does to the y, you do that to the a prime. Then you go to the b, and then you apply the transformation again, and then you just keep going all the way through your points, and then you connect your lines. Well, that's all I have for you in this lesson. Hopefully you learned something there. There's lots going on, right? Lots of movement and things, but it's actually fairly simple. All you do is you take your original, okay, and then you just move it the way that they tell you to move it. Put your point. Go to the next one. Put your point, okay, and you just keep applying those, and it should be something that kind of works out for you as you're putting your points down there. Now, if you ever get one that where you do it and you're like, that doesn't look like the same shape, you must have done something wrong. So go back and check your work and do it again. All right, that's all I've got for you. Hope you learned something there. We'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.